So strategic planning is the work that an organization does, essentially involving around the development of strategy in the medium to long term. So it's not the short term work it does on a day-to-day basis. It's not operational, which is 1 to 2 years. It's something beyond that, where it's setting targets, vision, goals for meeting its mission statement, for where it's going to go as an organization, what it's going to deliver, and ultimately usually ties in the world of sport management and sports marketing to programs. So programs fit into strategy as well. So you might have a vision for let's go get active girls. You might have a program around club development. You might have a program around facility development, elite sport pathways, and those are equally strategic in that they're often tied into operational plans, but more importantly, like a business planning cycle. And that could be, in the case of governing bodies in England, typically 4 to 5 years, where around 3 years they're starting to be clear about what they've met, what they've not met. Therefore, how's that going to work out financially for them from an agency like Sport England? Student has to understand strategic planning, because ultimately, whatever level you work at, whether that is in a local sports club and you never are paid to work in sport, through to you end up working for the Rugby Football Union, they will all have an implication around your work for strategy, vision, mission statement, aims, goals, and key performance targets. You could be managing that. You could be being managed to meet that. But either way, it's going to be a part of your daily life as a sport management, sport development, or PE student. Typically, the traditional form of strategic planning that goes on, I guess, is quite old-fashioned. People look at the resources they have, they audit what's going on, they decide where they want to go, and they work out how they're going to get there. For an organisation like the England and Wales Cricket Board, how many clubs do they have? How many coaches do they have? Badminton, for example, similar sort of thing. Do they have so many courts that are used in leisure centres, so many in leisure trusts? But what is it ultimately they want to achieve? In the case of badminton, for example, they're very keen at the moment on increasing the number of club members. That's where they see their bread and butter money, because that delivers strategic planning goals for Sport England in that case. So yeah, they're perhaps two useful examples. Well, I think you start to get into more interesting territory. Be interesting from a sort of textbook theoretical perspective where you as students sit on this. For me as a practitioner, there's certainly a vision of what we say we do versus the reality of what actually happens. A really nice example of that is strategic planning around what were back in sort of like 2010, that sort of area, the school sports partnerships and the evidence base behind the numbers of kids that were taking part in school sport. And that was linked to Youth Sport Trust and the measurement and the evaluation, where PE teachers were asked to complete information. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the information that was completed, we looked at work by Smith and Leach 2015, you see in that how there's actually real flaws. Their paper was called Evidence, What Evidence? So you could pull together all the national strategic planning evidence you like and say that, let's say, 10,000 more children are taking part. But actually, if at the point of data capture, people are making it up, which in this case they argued they were, it could be highly contested as to what that is. The other thing that you're also going to have at a street level in any organization is people that ignore strategy, that don't have an interest in the vision, the mission statement, that perhaps resist it at best or reinterpret it. So they perhaps think, do you know, actually it's really important we focus on competitive sport and we're not going to focus on mental health, crime prevention, youth engagement. I want to really focus on competitive volleyball. That's the thing for me. That's what I'm going to do as a regional development officer. Now, you could say, what will that lead to? But I think, again, it's worth being aware that it can look very different on the ground to what it looks like in a strategy document. That's been my learning curve over 20 years.